evening. Welcome to another session of the Sea of Glass. Tonight we're going to the understanding of how this false religion started in the world. You know, what is the purpose? Why did God permit it to bring false religion on the human race? You know, this is what destroyed the human heart. And then we have to go back to the beginning to understand what happened and how we're going to get out of it. How in the world that we be able to get out of it so we can come to understand the power that God, who is always in the understanding of right over wrong, come to this point that two people in the world, one could be so evil and the other one could be so good. Let's try to understand this power and the understanding of the great power that split the human heart into the understanding of good and evil. We gotta go back to, the first two brothers on earth and go all the way up to the understanding of the 12 sons of Jacob to understand the power of the understanding of the son of Jacob. You gotta come to understand that this power is within us. Do some reading, Rita, while I set my phone.
Okay, we're reading on in the book of Jeremiah in the Old Testament, chapter 41. There's no title to this one, but we're going to come across a lot of names, so bear with me as to the pronunciation of those words, okay? Mm-hmm. In the 7th month, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, who was of royal blood and had been one of the king's officers, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, son of Anakim, at Mizpah. While they were eating together there, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and the 10 men who were with him got up and struck down Gedaliah, son of Anakim, the son of Shaphan, with the sword, killing the one whom the king of Babylon had appointed as governor over the land. Ishmael also killed all the Jews who were with Gedaliah at Mizpah, as well as the Babylonian soldiers who were there.
You gotta come to the understanding of the great power of what came from the beginning of the understanding of mankind, which is Adam and Eve, 6,000 years ago, to the understanding of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to understanding of the 12 sons of Jacob, so we can come to understand that when you have names like these these are all spirit. This is not a book about the flesh. It's not a book about a story. This is the book how the human spirit was formed and understood the power between what is in the understanding of good and evil, all the way up to the understanding that the way God made it happen for the purpose of what we are. And we come to this understanding that if you go to the Son, and the Son is the Son of the Father, and then you have up to three generation, you have the understanding here that the Father would be like arrogant, and the Son would be vanity. And you see, it's all spiritual understanding, and through the spiritual understanding, we have the power to understand the greatest glory that God has created for us. If He didn't make evil, He could not make good. So He had to make both in order to balance the budget of the power of intelligence. You could not have it. So He had to create evil first in order to be able to create the new heart, the new understanding of the coming time. And it's going to take maybe 1,000 years before you can heal the human spirit and the human heart into a new understanding. But, we may be more than 1,000 years before all men begin to understand that living in the understanding of worshiping one God and worshiping no other God before this God. Those are the things, and not using the word of the Lord in vain. Those are the first three commandments that religion totally ignore so they can worship their God, their Jesus, or their Muhammad, or whoever it is. But the power is, you have to come to understand the glory. And you want to read some more? Read out there.
The day after Gedaliah's assassination, before anyone knew about it, 80 men who had shaved off their beards, torn their clothes, and cut themselves, came from Shechem, Shiloh, and Samaria, bringing grain offerings and incense with them to the house of the Lord.
You got to come to understand that when people kill, when they say killed in the Bible, you got to really understand that the spiritual book, it's not a book about the history. It's not an history book. And if you read it like an history book, if you read it like a story book, you are missing the point. The point here that it's a spiritual book. And that book must be understood and has to be translated into spiritual terms. When they say 80 men, they don't mean 80 men, they mean 80 spirits. And when these spirits are being killed, it means that the truth is being killed. The power it comes over here. It could be 80, evil spirit, but if it's 80 men, you got to come to understand that in order to form false religion, something had to be killed in the truth in order to bring the world of make-believe it. Because what we have in religion now is the world of make-believe. There's nothing else than all the lies and the stupidity of what makes no sense in the world. The great power of a human being that comes and he teaches from the book of the ignorance. And he tells people the lies of the world, and then people believe in these lies. And then they come. You see, that's what I come to kill these evil spirits, kill the lies, and bring the common sense through so the great power of a human being comes to understand that the truth is what it is. And you see what happened back, in the time of Jeremiah, people killed the truth. So they brought the spirit to Babylon. And Babylon became the false religion and the false religion of the world. And you got all these spirits that had to be killed to get to the power of false religion. And you see what happened here? Before there was Jerusalem, and all the knowledge of life came from the Bible. So in order to make the Bible and understand the Bible, they had to kill the truth to get to the power of false religion. You got to worship God, but you can worship the God of your choice. You can't do that. Here you have Christianity. They worship a man that was good. They worship a man that created miracles. They worship a man that did, and then the same man gets crucified for it, so he became a martyr over them. But you got to understand the power here, that God made this happen. It did make this happen for the glory of the wrong of the world to come to this day, so we can come to understand the new heart and how the new heart will come to bring the human race to the point of the truth. Go ahead.
Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, went out from Mizpah to meet them, weeping as he went. When he met them, he said, "Come to Gedaliah, son of Anakim." When they went into the city, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and the men who were with him slaughtered them and threw them into a cistern.
You see, this is where the understanding of Adam and Eve and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the 12 sons of Jacob. But you got to understand that the power of the world now stands in the fourth son that came from the slave girl. You see, we had the slave girl, the two slave girl of ritual, which was government and God. So people go with country and God, and that you have to become a slave to it and believe it. if you're going to live in the world, because that's the way the world is made. It's made by, people all worship their country, they worship God. So you see, you got to take the two sons of the slave girl and bring them to the point where these girls, the slave girls, were slave to Jacob. They were the slave. They could not say, well, I can't have sex with you and have a son. They were giving, and they had to have this son. And then you have the other two sons, the two sons that came from Lish, and these were Gay and Ashley. Okay, this is money and business. So you have the four sons of the, and that's a spirit that's inside of us. And it's also, these four sons are also the four-winged creatures of the book of Ezekiel and the book of Revelation, and the great power of that. And the understanding of that, you have to have the great power of yourself and save your soul to be able to penetrate the power of reason inside of us in spiritual terms, to come to the understanding that these are the power that controls the human spirit. We control the human spirit by the great power of a human being that comes. And you come as a human being to the world as a baby, and you grow up and you learn and you learn. But if you stop learning along the way, you cannot keep up with the truth. The truth has to come in the understanding. And these four sons that comes, and you see, I talk about the first four sons that, Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah. Those are the first sons. They came from the first wife. These came because Rachel could not bear babies, so she had to give her slave girl to Jacob, and he had two sons from her. And these two sons are, a country and God, which is Dan, and you have Dan and I can't pronounce that name. I'm having a tough time to pronounce that. Natalie. Okay, Dan and Natalie. I don't know if I pronounce it right, but anyway. But this is the way it is. This is the way you got to come to understand that we're slaves to these things. We cannot live without a government. Some country in the world, they tried to live without a government, and they had the army over them, and look at Hitler, the mess that he did. A man is not intelligent enough to control a country. You have to have the power of other men together to form the intelligent enough to control a country. And the people that live under dictatorship have to suffer a lot, because the man is not a good man, he's not an evil man, but he's good in evil. And he will bring upon evil where he thinks evil should be, and he will try to be good to show himself off. But the understanding here is that you have to be slaves to it. And then the other two, money. Money is the god of the earth. There's more people in this world that worship money than God. And that is the truth. You've got to look at the world the way it is. People are all dreaming of making a lot of money. People are all dreaming of getting rich. People are all dreaming of having a big pension at the end of their life so they don't have to work no more to do this. But the thing is, more people worship money than worship God. Even though that Dan is an affiliation of man and God, you still have the power that what the people can see inside their little mind of loss and gain. And that's where it comes in. It's the same thing with business. People will be crook in business just to make money. You got to come to understand that you're a slave to that. And in order for you to survive, you got to work. You got to produce money. And you got to work for the people. It's like almost selling your time to another person, and which is not the part of the new world, but it will come to be in the new world. Read some more so I can explain a little bit more on this.
Okay, when Ishmael and his men came and slaughtered them and threw them into a cistern, but 10 of them said to Ishmael, "Don't kill us. We have wheat and barley oil, and honey hidden in the field. So he let them alone and did not kill them with the others. Now the cistern there, he threw all the bodies of the men he had killed, along with Gedaliah, was the one King Asa had made as part of his defense against Baasha, king of Israel. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, filled it with the dead.
You got to come to understand here the great power of the 10 men, the 10 commandments. You see, you're not used to understanding the Bible like this, but you got to take the commandments as each one is a spirit. It's the understanding, and it's written in here like 10 men. But you got to come to understand that the 10 men brought the power. So they did not kill the 10 commandments. In other words, the commandments survive, but they killed everything else around it, and they changed the commandment to their understanding, or killed them if they didn't believe what they said. But the 10 commandments survive, but did not survive in the way of holiness, because the people that took them and stole them from Jerusalem came and brought him into an understanding, because everybody needed to have religion, some kind of religion. So they had to steal him from Jerusalem to bring to the power of the Spirit into, into the understanding of outside the land of Canaan, the Babylonian. And that's where false religion was born. At that point, false religion was born. And then the Catholic Church is nothing more than the Great Babylon, because she comes after false religion in the understanding of false religion, and it's all built on lies and superstitions and the world of make-believe and the assumption and everything else that you have. You don't have the truth there, because the truth cannot be processed in intelligence. Because people did not understand the scriptures. They did not understand that this was a spiritual book, 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. They thought that this was it was a story. And they tried to make the best out of the story, but their mind was not developed enough to understand the power. And even today, the teacher of religion they don't have the theology to understand the Bible in spiritual terms. They think they think Adam and Eve was the first man and the first woman. They're wrong about that. You got to come to understand that Adam and Eve was a bunch of people that God placed the Spirit inside of them. And that's how the creation was created, to come to understand it. It was not just one man and one woman. God just poured His Spirit inside the human race in the understanding. Now, there's no such thing. Each man has an Adam and an Eve inside of them. There's no such thing as a woman. Everybody's informed through the spirit of Adam and Eve inside their spirit. And then they had two sons. Two sons came in the understanding of Cain and Abel. So it was from that teaching, from the understanding of that teaching, came evil and good. So the great power of evil and good. But where's that come from? Why would a man comes and he will do the most evil thing on the face of the earth, and then another man will come and he will do all the good things? Because there's a split in the human heart. There's a great power inside of us that does not determine the glory of goodness over evil. The thing is, one spirit that attack evil cannot understand good, and one man that does good cannot understand evil, because there's a split in the human heart. We can't understand why a man would go. I want to use an example of the Boston, marathon, and these people threw these bombs over there to kill 3 people, and a lot of people lost their limbs and their legs and their arms. What made these people do these things? And you got to look at it. You got to look at the younger son, and the younger son is the one that I want to really make you focus on. Where did he get that religion? From his parents, from the son to the father to the son, and his brother. Next thing you know, these people lied to him all his life. They did not teach him to worship God. They taught him to worship a story. And the story came that they wanted to hurt the people that don't believe like them, because they cannot understand the power of the other side of the spirit. So they live in there. Now this little boy, after he got caught, he's been prosecuted for life in prison, and the judge pronounced his sentence on him. You know, you got to understand, why is he there? Because he was lied to all his life. He was pronounced by his parents and his uncle and his aunt, and everybody does these things. You see, these are the ones of the Samaritan. They get beaten up to the point that he's almost dead. And then he goes to jail for the rest of his life and suffer for the purpose of a false religion that he adapted somewhere along the way. This is where people don't realize that false religion destroyed the human spirit. And if you want to make people believe in false religion, well, you're going to have big problems. You're going to have people killing people. You're going to have all kinds of stuff. And you'll never have peace on earth. In order to come to understand the great power of the Lord, you got to come to understand the first 3 commandments of our Lord. You know, there's only one God. You cannot worship an image of a man down below or underneath. I should have had that ready tonight to read it. And you should not take the Lord of the word in vain. Now, taking the Lord of the word in vain does not mean, swearing. This is taking a piece of the Bible and take it and name God for it, and then take the scriptures and pronounce a lie over it. That's taking the word and gave it in vain. This is not taking, if you say something stupid in society, that's not a swear. A swear is taking, the proverb of the Lord, the verb of the Lord, and twisting it to your understanding and lying to people with it. That's taking so you take those 3 commandments of the Lord that was taken to Babylon, and that was twisted to the understanding, okay, there's only one God, but we can worship the Son. Who tells you he's the Son of God? Son of God is the truth, and his Son is common sense. So they twisted it in the understanding that a man that did good to people and performed great miracle around them and fooled them a little bit was going to be the God himself. So now people worship Jesus as God because they don't know God, so they have to worship Jesus because they don't know God. They have no idea what God is. God is a feeling inside of you that tells you the reality of truth and the common sense of truth. That's what God is. It's inside of you. And if you go to love in the way of the Lord, you go to love with justice, fairness, and unity. That gives you the power inside of yourself to be a human being with a pure heart. You see, but if you don't have that, you worship a false God before the Lord your God, then what happens is that the people of the world are being falsely taught by religion. Now, what becomes the evil thing on earth? What becomes the Satan of the world? It's the lie of the world. And where did these lies come from? They come from false religion that was created 4,000 years ago and then brought to an understanding with the level of God. You see, you go back to the understanding that Eve took the serpent and believed it, and then took the bread of the serpent and gave it to Adam. And this is the way we became. Through the lies of the world, the imagination of the mind, the assumption of the mind, the great power to come to realize what God is. And read some more, Rita. This is really, really.
Ishmael made captives of all the rest of the people who were in Mizpah, the king's daughters, along with all the others who were left there, over whom Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard, had appointed Gedaliah, son of Anakim. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, took them captive and set out to cross over to the Ammonites.
You've got to come to understand this power here. There's such power in in the scriptures here, what a human being becomes, and you start understanding. You see, few people can understand the Bible in spiritual terms in the world. I don't think that, you can count them. I don't know if you can get 10 people in the whole world that really can understand the scriptures in spiritual, that can translate the spirit in spiritual terms. But the great power here is to be able to understand how that false religion started and where does it come from that a person would believe in something so stupid as Christianity, so stupid as the Catholic Church, that doesn't make sense at all. And they say, well, you tell them, you got 7 sacraments that doesn't make any sense. But they don't believe you. They cannot comprehend the power of evil here, the power of the lies of the world. So what was created here, take this water here, and you have holy water, because one man took his 2 fingers and blessed on it. That's stupid. That's ignorance. That's not the truth. It's not the power of the truth. Then I'll baptize the child and make him pure with it. It's not the truth. It's something that was made up by an assumption, stupidity and ignorance. And then they say, well, the next one here, we'll forgive your sins. I'll make a blessing on you. And everything that you've done wrong that's not the way it works. I gotta bring that up because, you got to come to understand that the bishop was saying, and the police was, not police, but the guy with the microphone asked him, why did you let him go back into society after he molested those children? Oh, I heard his confession. How stupid can you be? A human spirit that's in total disarray, you're going to tell him that with a hand motion you forgot his sin? It's the same thing with selling your soul to the church, selling your soul to something. It's stupid. God is the only one you can sell your soul to. You can't sell your soul to evil. You can't sell your soul to the stupidity of the world. You have to kill these evil spirits inside the world in order to free yourself from the ignorance of the world. You cannot continue believing the stupidity that came from religion. You have a whole bunch of people. You have billions of people in the world that would give their life for this. And it's not true. It doesn't make sense. It's not part of the reality of what is. And then you have the great power here. Tell you that inside of you, there's a purpose that is called the truth. And you have to go to that truth in order to be free from the stupidity that makes it. And then you have the understanding of the marriage on earth. Marriage. Now, this has got to be the most stupid thing that you do. You take a man and a woman, you stand them up before you, or you kneel them up before you, and you bless them, and forever these people are married together. They're tied up. There's no rope that ties them up. There's no string that ties them up, but the thing of a man. Now, man was not meant to be just for one woman, and a woman was not meant to be just for one man. The part of the world here that you have to be free from these lies. And when you're not free from these lies, you believe in them. There's millions of people that believe in marriage out there, and they will do anything to preserve it. And they will try to protect it with their life. And it's not true because it doesn't make sense to the rest of intelligence. If it did make sense to the rest of intelligence, then it would. But it does not make sense. And it's not the way it is. And people were persecuted because they were not married. And then you see, the whole thing of false religion comes on you from all these lies that tricks your heart into the understanding of the reality that is not the truth. It's not the power of the truth. And if it's not the truth because it does not exist in the understanding that you have over here, in the common sense of intelligence, in the reality of intelligence, you cannot say that it's true because it does not match reality. Now, if it wasn't real, then you would have something spiritual that would go and come inside and purify it. Then you have what they call, the priesthood, the great power of the priesthood. What is that? Priest does not mean a man is blessed by the Pope to become priest. Priest in the Bible talks about the spiritual power of love inside of you that has three sons, that has justice, fairness, and unity. That's the priest. And you always have to go to the priest of love in order to determine the power of yourself in front of other people. I spend my life worshiping in the Bible. And I spent 40 years trying to understand the scriptures backward, forward. I don't know if I got 50,000 hours in there, maybe more. But try to understand in spiritual terms what the Bible means. And believe me, I want to tell you that these false religions are so fake, it's almost unbelievable. Because I have learned that the other side of it, and I had freed my soul from them. And when your soul is free, you can understand them, and you can come and understand the power of it. And then you have, the promise of everlasting life in it. That's the dumbest thing in the world. Everlasting life belongs in life, not in death. They tell you after you die that you have everlasting life. In another world somewhere that they can't tell you where it is because they don't know any more than you do. But they tell you that you're going there. They call it heaven. Heaven is the great power of a human being that has conquered intelligence and has conquered the power to destroy the evil king of the world, to understand the real kings and the understanding of life, the truth itself. You got to worship the Lord to get that. If you don't worship the Lord, you're not going to get it. If you worship in religion, then you have a false religion to back you up and to find out where you're going after you're dead. Well, they tell you one thing. You're going in the ground. You're going into a great earthquake. The great power of a human being comes in the spiritual power of life for everlasting, and that lives in life. And then you have, the power of, you have the priest, and then you have the power of the blessing. This is not gonna make any sense. Man hasn't got the power. They tell you that the priest has the power to bless you, to change you. If there was a lie that was told on earth, that's got to be the biggest lie of all. The Pope has this power. The Pope is infallible when he talks about God. What makes a man it's so ridiculous. It's so stupid. It's so ignorant that the great power of it. Read some more, Rita.
When Johanna, son of Kareah, and the army officers who were with him heard about all the crimes Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, had committed, they took all their men and went to fight Ishmael, son of Nethaniah. They caught up with him near the great pool in Gibeon. When all the people Ishmael had with him saw Johanna, son of Kareah, and the army officers who were with him, they were glad. All the people Ishmael had taken captive at Mizpah turned and went over to Johanna, son of Kareah. But Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and 8 of his men escaped from Johanna and fled to the Ammonites.
You got to come to understand the butcher that was made in religion here. You see, Islam, is the one that brought all these armies together to kill and to loot from Jerusalem everything that was. They did not take anything of value in the way of the understanding of the mind, but that's what they did there. But what it means that they took the spiritual part of Jerusalem and killed it, or brought what they want to bring to the great power of false religion. And that's how false religion was made, from one mind to the next, from one understanding to the other side, from great power of a human being, from son to... You see, what you have right now, you have tradition in the world. The Father, the Son, Father and the Son, Father and the Son. This is the Son of the Father. And you have the tradition, one year after another, and do the same, repeat the same stupid act that you did before in the understanding of a lost cause. Now, all of these people were slaughtered. That means that religion, the Bible, was slaughtered by the mind, by the understanding of the weak part of a human being, because they could not penetrate the understanding. If you don't worship God, you can't understand the Bible. That's all there is to it. And that's what happened to the human race. This is what happened. People forgot to worship one God in heaven. First commandment of our Lord. That's the first commandment and the most powerful one of all. If you don't worship God, you don't understand the rest of it. And then you'll make yourself a God of your own in order for you to worship your God. And that's what happened to the human race. They made their Jesus. They made their Muhammad. They made their Buddhists. They make all the people worship the God that they can see, not the God that they cannot see in the feelings of a human being. They could not go there and understand that God. You know, people condemn you for condemning the stupidity of these religions because they can't understand. They think it's real. When a human being thinks that these religions are teaching real, valuable stuff, and when they're not, they are totally against the great power. They missed, what does the cross represent on a human being? It means that you missed the mark. You did not understand the purpose of a spiritual Bible. You did not understand the Bible in spiritual terms. You got people in all religions. They try to stick with the New Testament, and they teach the New Testament, but they do not teach the great power of the spiritual value. You would never see a person read a scriptures like we just read and tell you what it means, because they don't have it. If they don't have it, how can they teach you something? You see, this is the way it is. False religion was introduced by the world because they could not understand what is the real thing will come in the understanding of the great power of a human being. God, who is the truth, is the power to understand that. But if you don't believe in that God will not come and penetrate inside your heart. And if you want to be free from all these stupidity, these ignorance of these huge lies that was told to people from one generation to the next, you won't be able to beat them. You take a Catholic that's pure in his Catholic faith, cannot penetrate, cannot understand the day that he has to leave that behind and follow another God. No, they cannot. They already believe that the church is part of the affiliation with God. And they believe that that church will bring them to God. But it's not true. See, this is the power that I plead with the human spirit. Try to be able to understand that the scriptures were not made for religion. They were made for the common soul of a human being that looks inside of his soul and tries to find the Lord inside of himself. This is what this Bible was created for. For a human being, as small as he may be, can come and understand the greatest power of the divinity of God. You see, this is what the power is. Power. To be able to understand that there's a higher power inside of us, and you know who he is. I hear that on TV a lot of the time and say, there's these people on Sunday morning, they're preaching, and they ask the question, is God real? I heard that in a commercial so many times. Is God real? How can you know? If you ask the question, you don't even know what God is. You have no idea what God is. God is real inside this little feeling that you have inside your soul, to bring into the understanding of this great power of yourself. Okay, read some more.
Flight to Egypt. Then Johanna, son of Kareah, and all the army of officers who were with him led away all the survivors from Mizpah, whom he had recovered from Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, after he had assassinated Gedaliah, son of Anakim, the soldiers, women, children, and court officials he had brought from Gibeon.
You see, you got to understand now. You take him from Babylon, you bring him to Egypt. The Egyptian is the one that took the children of Israel into. Now, you see, it doesn't mean here that the children that came from the descendant of Israel are the chosen people. But the chosen people were the chosen spirit. If you don't translate that in spiritual terms, you got to think that these people, the Canaanites are better than the Molokai. And this is not what it is. What it is that anybody that lives the true faith of the one true God, is the children of God. But the people that did not understand the faith of the one true God, including the people of Israel, but they were taken captive. Can you understand when you're taken captive, you become a slave? And when you become a slave, you cannot worship the one true God. And this is what happened to the spiritual part of it, not the flesh. The flesh is something else. It's another world. There's a spiritual world and there's a world of flesh. Now, when you're thinking intelligent, you have to go across the understanding that what is not part of the great power of Israel. God said, okay, now, I'm making this teaching, and I'm using people, I'm using countries, I'm using this to make this story stand up in the understanding. So he used Israel. It doesn't mean that Israel is better than the Roman, is better than it means that whoever cannot understand the one true God is not part of the children of God. The people that understand the one true God, and there's so few in the world, many are called, and so few are chosen. Those are the words said in the New Testament, that many people will come trying to understand, and they will fail because they cannot penetrate through spiritual truth. You have to return to a single mind, a single little baby inside your soul, and start life in an understanding of new things. You destroy all the evil things that you have believed and go back to the simplicity of a small child. This is not a little child of the earth now. This is a little baby inside your soul that is born to understand and to worship God in a total different fashion than the world does. And when you do that, you come to the understanding of this great power of a human being that comes inside of you for the purpose that God is the truth, and his Son is common sense, and the Holy Spirit is the angel of reality. See, all of these things becomes one inside your soul that makes a pure soul. If you don't say, well, like Christmas, that's a pagan holiday, but it's practiced by the children that does not understand God. Halloween, that's a pagan holiday that people that don't understand God. So they worship these things in these ways so they can come to the understanding that a human being comes to the lower part of himself and believes something that's totally not true. Go ahead.
And they went on, stopping at Geruth Kimam near Bethlehem on their way to Egypt to escape the Babylonians. They were afraid of them because Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, had killed Gedaliah, son of Anakim, whom the king of Babylon had appointed as governor over the land.
Okay, you gotta really try to understand the spiritual part here. It's so powerful to be able to understand these things in spiritual terms. Try to understand what happened in the world. This tells you what happened in the world. Why is this world that there's so many people that have turned to evil? Because they cannot understand good. Good and evil. You can kill people. You can destroy people. But the big power is to kill the spirit. You see, a thief becomes a man that steals the spirit from another man. You see, if you have the worshiping of God, you have all the wealth of the world on your side. It's not the same wealth, but it's the wealth of the intelligence of the world. And when you have this, the intelligence, you almost can create anything with yourself. You can do the greatest thing in life because, and you don't have to be rich to do it. You don't have to be powerful. You don't have to be raised as a great prince and a great person and sent to college when you were 10 years old and sent to all kinds of different schools. No, you have to have in your heart the simplicity to understand simple things and simple matters and try not to complicating the simplicity of life. You see, what happened is the people of religion could not understand, so they complicated the obvious. They destroy the unbelievable, and they created the unbelievable out of the understanding that they have nothing. And then they turn the stupidity of a human being into the great power of what they were made for. See, you got to understand the whole thing. It was created inside the human spirit. God has created it there. You don't want to worship the Lord your God. You don't want to worship the laws of God. So you're going to say, well, I'm going to make them up to myself. A man said, well, I can steal a little bit. But if you become a thief, you're going to become a thief of spirit. Because you cannot take money from someone without forming a spiritual understanding of it. Because you got to understand that you were made in spirit. Made in spirit before flesh. So if you go to the bank and they give you $100 that don't belong to you, and you try to fit it into your soul and say, well, I got $100 more. These people, somebody has to pay for it, but I don't care. You see, you gotta create something inside your spirit to justify it, because you cannot live with yourself if you don't justify the evil deed. And that's what happened. Once you justify the little deed, it becomes a bigger deed. And then you justify a bigger deed until you start killing people, and then you justify that yourself. You see, that's what happened to that kid that I was telling you about a few minutes ago. This kid was taught by his parents to kill people that was all right so long as they were not of their religion. So they came here and they created some bomb and left it in the middle of a crowd. Now, how can you, inside your soul, how can you justify a deed like that? How can you justify to be a kind person of religion that believe in God, and they do believe in some kind of a God, but to create something like this inside your spiritual understanding? When you do that, you have to take the power of yourself. It's like stealing $100 from the bank because somebody made a mistake. You cannot justify that. You have to come to understand that it's not yours. And if you say, well, they made a mistake, you see, you justify them with their mistake. And it's not right, because you cannot do that. You cannot take a human being and create something so stupid and so evil and say to yourself, well, I didn't do nothing wrong, he did. You see, you pass the blame of your ignorance on another person that made a mistake. And his mistake is not a sin, but your mistake is a sin. You see, this is the power of a human being that justified wrongdoing to other people by the understanding of his own mistake that's inside of his soul, and that became a sin. And the sin has to be punished by heaven, because you cannot do that in the understanding of life. You see, the laws of God are made with the justice of the heart. If you love people, you have to love them in justice. And if you take the person's right to create something like that, then what you do, you destroy the understanding. They made the mistake. They gave me $100 more. You see, be careful of yourself, because your sin comes from your ignorance. It doesn't come from your intelligence. Never, never underestimate your ignorance over your intelligence, because the powers that what you created is a monster inside your spirit. Next time you're going to do a little bit more. Oh, all the way to robbing a bank. You know, how can it be that a human being goes, take a gun, go inside of a bank, and rob the bank of $6,000-7,000, walked out of there, go to the casino, play inside of himself? How can he justify that? He can't justify it, but he's got to blame the police. They didn't catch me. It's them. You know, it's the fault. You know, I got away with it. And then he gets caught. And then he has to go to jail for it. Then he looked at himself. Why? Why did I do that? Because you learn from your father, which is your first feeling, to the second feelings. See, that's what happened to this whole story here. These people learned from their father, the one that taught them to do wrong, and the next one. You can read some more.
Then all the army officers, including Joanna, son of Kareah, and Jezaniah, son of Hoshash, and all the people from the least to the greatest, approached Jeremiah the prophet and said to him, "Please hear our petition and pray to the Lord your God for this entire remnant. For as you now see, though we were once many, now only a few are left. Pray that your Lord, your God, will tell us where we should go and what we should do."
Here we come to the understanding here. You see, once you justify your soul to what you are, you come to the understanding. Now, you see, these people that killed the other people there, they did not understand the power. It's the same thing with a preacher that goes up in his pulpit on Sunday and preaches to people with the lies that he believes. How can he justify himself? Because, see, he can justify himself with his ignorance, not with his intelligence, because he just tried to make sense out of the Bible that he knows that he cannot make sense out of the Bible because he don't understand it in spiritual terms. So he tries to make up in his little mind of a lost soul, and then he justifies himself with, "Oh, I'm a good man. I preach the word of the Lord. I do this." He doesn't realize of the effect that it does on people that listens to him. And that's how you justify. See, a criminal that goes and rob a bank, he knows he did wrong. But a preacher on Sunday that goes steal from the people of the world that believes in one God and the God of feeling doesn't know that. He doesn't know that because he has justified himself with a great power of something. So the Lord God of Israel has to forgive this man and let him keep going with that. But one day, he has to answer to that, the power of a human being. And that's why you see all these clergymen making a lot of mistakes today. And you see them, molesting children, and you see them, taking money that don't belong to them and then justifying themselves with it. And they have a church. Oh, then we got to support the church, but then they put the money in their pocket. And the people are giving money. And next thing you know, these people don't realize that this is the guy that caused the trouble in their life. Anyway, try to understand what these scriptures mean in spiritual terms before you come to understanding in the reality. God bless you all, and I hope that you come to understand the Bible in spiritual terms in the future, because it's the greatest need. It's the greatest power of a human being, to be able to open his soul to the humanity of the truth. God is the truth, and the truth is God.